What is going on, YouTube? What's going on, fellow fantasy people? And as always, what is going on, the catch fam? We have got Steven in the house. What is going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Just ready to break down these quarterbacks.
That's right. We have got quarterbacks 1 through 12, our top 10, or excuse me, top 12 quarterbacks on the clock. So let's crack right into it with no surprise. At number one for the both of us, our guy, Patty Mahomes. I mean, who else can you really put here, right? He's looked exceptional in the preseason. He's looked exceptional all offseason. QB4 on the year last year, but I don't think anyone cares. I mean, this is the guy, right?
Mhm.
Look at some of the finishes last year. You got number one finish week 3, number one finish in week 5, number one finish in week 8, and number 2 finish in week 12. But who really cares, right? It's not really about the stats. It's not really about the numbers that he put up last year or the year before. It's about the player, and it's about Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes, right? So I can't say enough good things, and I'm sure you can't either, but I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were just talking the other night about, when they had the preseason game and Kansas City just looked unstoppable, just like the past 2 years. And Patrick Mahomes floated up that dime piece to Tyreek Hill. I mean, I think we're going to see just even better chemistry between those two, as well as Travis Kelsey next year. I think Patrick Mahomes is just going to be a for sure lock. And that's what keeps him at number one, I think, year over year is just that, in that top four, I mean, you're going to see those guys. And he might not be the actual QB1 next year, but you can lock it in that he's going to be a top 3 quarterback. And that's him, it's in there. And that's why he typically goes first. He's got that rushing upside too, which people, it's hard to think that sometimes because he's so elite with his arm, but he can run too, as we saw most recently in the Super Bowl where he had quite a few rushing yards.
Yeah, and the thing that stands out for me is the strength of schedule for Patrick Mahomes from a fantasy perspective next year. Ninth easiest strength of schedule overall. Let's look at the stats for a second because last year, we saw him, over 4,700 passing yards and 38 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, and then to your point, 308 rushing yards as well as 2 rushing
Mhm.
touchdowns. So I guess my question here is where do you see Patrick Mahomes improving the most? And where do you see him potentially being, uh, let's say, stagnant or regressing? Because for me, I'm looking for him to improve on all of those numbers overall. I'm looking for him to get closer to that 2018 form, especially
Yeah.
with what we've seen out of the preseason.
Yeah, no, I think another big boon to his, stock going up is the fact that they really improved that O line, which was, kind of a negative in terms of this Kansas City offense, is that they had a pretty weak O line, which led to Mahomes getting shaken up a bit, which, ultimately is going to impact what he's able to do week to week. So I think we're going to see an offensive line that allows Patrick Mahomes to maybe just sit back and make his reads a lot easier, make those passes a lot more effectively. And like, yeah, I mean, Mahomes doesn't need all that to, go out there and throw absolute dimes and rockets every play, but having that there, play after play is going to help him. And I think his numbers do get back up and he gets closer to that career high mark.
I sure hope so, because I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna draft this guy in our league, and I'm gonna start him every week. I don't care about running backs anymore. I'm picking Patty Mahomes in the first round.
He's going to go early, man. I know you've
Uh,
been talking about that in your mock drafts about how, in your personal leagues, he's going to go quick. And, you're not wrong at all on that.
so let's just move on because I think if we keep talking about Patrick Mahomes, we could do an entire episode on just Patrick Mahomes and his fantasy value, and I think it's pretty consensus across like all rankings. I mean, you might see Kyler or Josh Allen sprinkled in at number one, but for the most part, this is your number one, and that of Patrick Mahomes, and I think rightfully so. So,
Yeah.
speaking of Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, these are the next 2 quarterbacks that we are going to talk about. My second rated quarterback is that of Josh Allen, and my third ranked is that of Kyler Murray. And then on the vice versa, your second ranked quarterback overall is that of Kyler Murray, and then you've got Josh Allen ranked third overall. So let's start the discussion with that of Josh Allen. Why not?
Mhm.
Um, So obviously a fantastic year last year. QB1 on average last year in fantasy. Um, and man, part of me I just see a lot of similarities, honestly, between how Josh Allen has been playing and how Patrick Mahomes plays, where you're very, very pass heavy, um, but you still present that rushing upside as well. Uh, and I don't know, man. It's really tough with these next kind of three quarterbacks
Hmm.
or so. Um, but I just think the value of being able to pass the ball so intensely and still give pretty good rushing upside. That's why I've got him in front of not just Kyler Murray, but also Lamar Jackson. But yeah, it's really tough for me to rank these next couple of guys. But uh, I just see Josh Allen having another extremely explosive year where he throws for over 4,500 passing yards. He throws for over 35 touchdowns, and he still rushes for 8 to 10 touchdowns and around 400 to 500 rushing yards. So I'm not mad for you at all for having Kyler in front of
Hmm.
him. If you were to even put Lamar Jackson here, not just you, anyone, right? I would get it. But at the moment, I just feel overall the most confident in Josh Allen being at that QB2 mark. So that's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are neck and neck for me. It's really hard to kind of split hairs here, but I would just say, in terms, first off, just talking about Josh Allen, I mean, this guy's elite. I mean, I think he's, it's not as good as Mahomes, but I mean, he's right there with them, just like you were saying. In terms of just raw talent, this guy can throw it, 99 yards any single play. And being paired up with Stephon Diggs, I mean, it's just like Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. So
Sure.
he certainly got that there. This offense is improved too. They got Gabe Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley. They got good weapons. And the only place they're weak is at running back, which allows him to become the rushing leader. So
Sure.
I do like that. And it's like, so when you make the argument of like, oh, Kyler's got the running ability, well, Josh Allen actually does too. So they are really neck and neck, really right there together. I think the thing that I see though with Josh Allen that maybe just take a beat back is saying that he was so damn good last year. He beat all the metrics. I see some regression coming to him and this Bills team a little bit. And I see maybe positive regression coming to Kyler because this offense just like was not able to put it all together. I didn't think they had the right pieces at the time. I still think Cliff Kingsbury is a terrible coach. But I do think that he's been outspoken about it. He finally has all the pieces to run the specific offense that he wanted to run since coming from college. Maybe that's just a cop out. And he's been like, that's the reason why I failed in the past. But I think now with all the weapons that this Arizona team does have, I think that they're so focused on Kyler being an integral part of every single play. I mean, just like the Bills, their running back core is shitty. So it's like, I think the fact that the spread offense with Arizona that actually relies on Kyler getting closer to 1,000 rushing yards in a season kind of allows him to just get a little bit more of an edge because he's going to get the rushing touchdown upside, but I also think he is for sure going to have way more rushing yards than Josh Allen.
Sure, yeah, and it's just like I almost kind of view these next couple of quarterbacks. I'll just throw Lamar Jackson in the mix. We've both got Lamar Jackson ranked fourth overall, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I view Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Lamar Jackson in very similar fashion in terms of their overall value. And I think my last note on Josh Allen is, I mean, doesn't really help my ranking and him have being ranked number 2 overall. But he's got the 27th most difficult strength of schedule from a fantasy perspective. But when you look at Kyler Murray, on average, his is looking at like the 24th overall.
It's right
Strength
there.
of schedule. Yeah, so it's pretty neck and neck, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know, man.
you
It's
you're
really
picking your guy.
difficult.
You're basically picking
Yeah,
your guy at that point.
sure.
You know what I mean? Both,
Yeah,
and if anything, Josh Allen's shown a little bit more health and durability. So
okay.
I think that's another thing too when you're really trying to think about who's going to be your QB1 for the full season. Health is a major issue. I had Kyler
Sure.
last year, and that was a problem. He got hurt towards the back half of the year, had that shoulder injury. Kyler's a fragile small guy.
Yeah, and it's crazy though. I mean, even with Kyler being banged up last year and kind of falling off towards the end of the season due to those injuries, still QB2 on the year, man. And when
Mm-hmm.
you look at weeks 1 through week 11, he was a top 10 quarterback all but 2 weeks out of that stretch. And the weeks that he was not a top 10 quarterback, he was QB 11. So he's still right there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And the weeks that he was not around that QB 11 mark, he was QB 7 or lower. So I mean, he had a fantastic
Yeah.
start to the season, cannot be understated. And still, Week 15, he came out and had a top four performance from the QB mark. So I think you summed up Kyler Murray. You know, great there. I really don't have anything else to add. Like this is a really difficult QB rating, not just QB, but player rating for me. These top three or four
That
guys.
tier is really
Yeah,
tight right there, all
it
the way through
is.
Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar is kind of where things kind of maybe break out a little bit and things
Sure.
maybe open up because that top four is tight.
Yeah, and I think it's a good transition to just go ahead and jump into that of Lamar Jackson, who was actually QB 10 on average last year. So, uh, you could say he didn't have the best year, right? I mean, not in terms of expectations, right? But I will note that weeks 13 through 17, which for most people is when your fantasy playoffs are going to be, were some of his best overall performances of the year. I mean, week 13 6 or QB 6 on average, week 14 QB 1, week 15 QB 5, and then he finished out as QB 11 and QB 8. So he played very well down the stretch at the end of
Mhm.
the season. And I just think you just can't underestimate Lamar Jackson. You can't count him out. I think you're kind of getting a discount on him because on some projections he's closer to the number 5 mark, but I view him almost the same exact way I view Kyler Murray. And dude, I mean, it's Lamar Jackson. Like,
He's getting a lot of hate this offseason, honestly.
sure,
There's been a lot of shit thrown in his name for, I mean, people are finally just kind of think giving up on his arm talent for some
yeah,
reason. And that makes no sense to me because I do think he's maybe a little overly critically analyzed there. I mean, he's has a good arm. It's this offensive system that's not maybe set up that for him to throw it as much as he wants. And the problem is with him is that because of that he's got that arm talent kind of ceiling kind of placed on him week to week. But when we were discussing the AFC North, we both felt as if they were going to expand the offense, maybe break it out a little bit and get him a chance to maybe prove to everybody how good he actually can be. And they went out, they got Sammy Watkins. They were more actively trying to get other players too. They went out and drafted receivers as well. So they were trying to put all the pieces for Lamar Jackson. Obviously, a lot of injuries have happened since then, though, right? So now
yeah,
Sammy Watkins is kind of the last man standing. So,
sure,
but one injury that actually just happened, J.K. Dobbins, which changes this offense completely.
it
I kind
does,
of view that as a upward stock trajectory for Lamar Jackson because
sure,
J.K. Dobbins was the clear cut. We're going to make this guy the franchise back. Without him now, you're relying on Gus Edwards, who we both like and should be driving up on stock on mock drafts. I mean, I would imagine is being
yeah.
drafted higher, but ultimately Lamar Jackson's going to probably run the ball a lot more.
Yeah, it's interesting because of course I had the same initial thought, but then our guy John Harbaugh came out and basically said that they're going to utilize several running backs, even with J.K.
Yeah,
Dobbins being out of the picture. But I still don't think you're wrong at
yeah.
all. I mean, because I mean, it depends. Are they going to bring in a new veteran back? It's hard to say. And when you look at their backfield, I think Gus Edwards right now is the clear cut RB1. But in my opinion, I think in your opinion too, that still makes Lamar Jackson the clear cut RB2 on this team. But it'll
I'd
be
say RB1. I would say
sure,
RB1.
sure,
Yeah,
yeah, you can. Yeah, definitely, right. And I think it'll be interesting. I think there's some veterans still kind of hanging out there on the waiver wire. I mean, imagine if they brought in a guy like Todd Gurley. I think that'd be great. But
it'd be
that's a
fun.
yeah, it'd be fun, right? It's another discussion for another video, right? But nonetheless, don't count out Lamar Jackson. I think is the point we're both trying to make, and both have him ranked fourth overall. And I think if you build your team RB heavy, that this is just the perfect guy to go out and get because he presents probably the best rushing upside out of all these guys. I mean, you could definitely argue Kyler Murray does,
Mhm.
um, but I think it's pretty neck and neck, at least for me. So, um,
Yeah, I've got him
none-
for sure ranked as the one dude who I think can maybe break that tier and get closer to that number one spot,
yeah,
and you can get him at steep value.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have enough good things to say about Lamar Jackson as a whole, but we definitely need to monitor, the Ravens and how they're going to be kind of filling that void that J.K. Dobbins has now left them. So, nonetheless, let's move right along. So, my fifth ranked quarterback is your sixth ranked quarterback, and then vice versa. Your number five is my number six. So, once again, let's just put it out there. I've got Dak Prescott as my number five, and you've got Tom Brady as your number five, which makes my number six that of Tom Brady, and your number six that of
Mhm.
Dak Prescott. So let's talk about Dak Prescott first, because he's on my ratings, which are more important than yours. And um, QB 33 on the year last year, but that doesn't matter. We all know that he was injured, right?
Yeah.
So weeks 1 through 5, right? Week 1, he was QB 19 on average. Week 2, you've got QB 1. Week 3, you got QB 4. Week 4, you got QB 1. And then in week 5, QB 20, but that was a game that he got injured. So really not even worth. I mean, he did play in 67% of those snaps, but nonetheless, what is your opinion on seeing Dak Prescott come out and perform how he performed in weeks, we'll say 1 through 4 of last year? I mean, week 1, still QB 19, but he played against the LA Rams in that week, who are,
Yeah.
arguably the best defense in the league, right? So, yeah, where do you stand in seeing Dak Prescott come out and kind of repeating that performance of last year?
So I like his chances to be great this year. I mean, obviously, I got him ranked really high on my board here, and I've been pretty outspoken about my love for Dak. I mean, especially in the NFC East video, I was really tooting his horn. And ultimately, you ranked him a little bit higher. And I think the main reason for that is kind of getting to your point about, do I think he can come back next year and do what he did last year? I mean, I don't know if that is possible because the pace he was on was like record break shattering, not just breaking, like shattering. Like
Yeah.
this guy was throwing for an absurd amount of yards and touchdowns because this was like the shittiest defense in the world. And it was the first time we ever had to deal with like a COVID offseason where defenses did not have the training. The training camp preseasons were all different. Tackling just wasn't as much of like a presence last year, and refs historically were holding back throwing flags as prior seasons. So I think there's a lot of stuff that maybe isn't like real surface level, that type of like factors that went into him just absolutely dominating last year. But with that said, too, I mean, one of the reasons I'm so high on this guy is because he is so gifted, so talented, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league, presents that rushing upside as well, gets like 6 touchdowns a season rushing the ball, and then has an elite offense. Everywhere he throws it or hands it off, I mean, everybody is like a 90 in Madden. Everybody's a
Yeah.
beast, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at the weapons he has this year, and C.D. Lamb, Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, who, side note, I'm a little angry at myself for sleeping on Amari Cooper this offseason slash preseason. Amari Cooper is a fantastic wide receiver,
He's
but
a stud.
a lot of options there at the receiver position, which I think semi hurts Amari Cooper's fantasy value. But I'm sleeping on Amari Cooper, and I'm mad at myself for that. Nonetheless, Blake Jarwin, I think, is going to be a good tight end this year. Not
Mhm.
a fantastic tight end, but a good tight end, right? And then you've got Zeke as well as a couple other running backs who can do some damage there, but you've still got Zeke, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're certainly right. Anywhere that he decides to throw the football, you're going to an absolute playmaker, and still a very good offensive line in Dallas as well. So, I mean, obviously, some people out there are a little hesitant at the moment because he's been dealing with that shoulder injury here in the offseason slash preseason, mainly just the preseason, right? But dude, I don't care, man. If Dak is out there and he feels healthy, I want this guy on my fantasy roster, especially if you see the other four quarterbacks we've already talked about be selected. In my
Mhm.
opinion, this is the next guy to go out and get. And yeah, I just want it goes back to the thing that we keep talking about, right? Looking at these different offenses out there, I want a piece of the Dallas Cowboys offense on my fantasy roster, and I think Dak Prescott's going to have a phenomenal year.
He's
So
kind of the best one to have too, because you get the commander, the one who touches everything, right? And I think that's a perfect segue to the commander of the NFL.
yeah,
Even as hard as that is to say for guys like us who are historically haters of Tom Brady, but Tom Brady,
yeah,
I mean, my number five, I think we really hammered on this in the NFC South podcast, but this is kind of the MVP pick, at least for me. And I think you also really liked his chances here because
Yeah.
this is like kind of a perfect scenario. The NFL has just really laid this up to him. Just, I mean, it's they gifted it to him. His offense is fucking loaded. I mean,
Yeah.
better than Dallas's
Let's
offense.
say we just talked about a
Yeah.
loaded offense, and
Yeah.
can
These two
certainly argue.
offenses,
Yeah.
these are definitely, I think, our favorite offenses
Sure.
this
Sure.
offseason, maybe. So, and the thing about being in a Bruce Arians system is that he wants to gun it every single play. And historically, quarterbacks in the second season with Bruce Arians have their best years. So the fact that Tom Brady didn't have maybe his best year yet is kind of scary. And the fact that we now have Antonio Brown for the full season, right? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at full health because Mike Evans wasn't healthy all year. Chris Godwin was definitely not healthy either. So we're getting everybody full health back. We got Gronkowski coming in, OJ Howard coming back in. I mean, there's so much talent here,
And
and this
not to
defense
mention,
is
dude,
lethal.
this offensive line is good.
Lethal.
This is a
Yeah, they are
good O
so
line.
good. Yeah.
And I like those two running backs on this
I
team
know
as
you
well.
love their running backs.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
obsessed with them.
I mean,
And
they're a
Tom
little
Brady's healthy.
sure, yeah. And I mean, no COVID off season, a full off season,
Mhm.
second year under Bruce Arians. There's a lot of good reason to really like Tom Brady this coming year. When you look at what he did in week 16 and 17 last year, which is like your prime fantasy playoffs,
Mhm.
fantasy championship games, QB2 and QB4, right?
Yeah.
And then on the year, I mean, as old as he is, he's still QB8 from a fantasy perspective on average last year. Dude, he just can't. He's the GOAT, right? I mean, it pains
Wasn't
us.
that
Go ahead.
wasn't that QB2 in the back half of the year? Wasn't that against Detroit too? If you have that up, I think because
Detroit and Atlanta. So I mean, yeah, not two very good offenses,
but
but
he played only the first half against Detroit.
oh
It
god,
wasn't even
you're right.
the full game. Yeah,
You're right.
they took
Yeah,
him out.
because
That's
I was
ridiculous.
sitting there. I was at work, keeping up with my fantasy scores, and the guy was playing. Had Mike Evans that week, who just went insane.
Yeah.
Due to Tom Brady. But yeah, you're 100% correct. He did not even play that full game, and he was QB. I mean, they just. I mean, granted, it's the Lions, right? But still, he
I
went
don't
out
give a
there.
shit. Yeah,
No,
that's
yeah, he
awesome.
just tore it up that week, and I mean, like I was saying, he's the GOAT. It pains us to say, as like
Mhm.
big fans of the Colts, right? I may be a little bandwagoner and moved on to the Broncos, but nonetheless, I mean, you just can't sleep on Tom Brady, man. I mean, don't make the mistake of passing on Tom Brady, right? So
Yeah.
let's just move along to someone who certainly thinks he's the greatest of all time, and that of Aaron
Mhm.
Rodgers in his last dance finale with the Green Bay Packers, potentially, right? We'll see what happens. But this is a quarterback who is ready to prove the league wrong. He's playing with an immensely large chip on his shoulder, and he is coming off of an MVP year, and he is still that riled up, right? I mean, he had a touchdown rate of 9.1% last year, which is absurd. He has got a lot of weapons. He's got Devontae Adams as his wide receiver one. He's got my guy, Robert Tonyan, at the tight end position. He's got Aaron Jones. A lot of people like A.J. Dillon at the running back position as well. And when you look at the other receivers on this squad, it doesn't really matter who they are. Aaron Rodgers elevates all of them to a higher level. They went out and traded for Aaron Rodgers' homie, Randall Cobb. But with all of that said, since this is my new stat that I have to tell everyone about during every second I can, he does have the 31st hardest strength of schedule on average from a fantasy perspective. But like, I've talked about this with Russell Wilson a little bit about not really caring about the strength of schedule. If there are two players in the NFL who I absolutely don't care about their strength of schedule, it's Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Like, those
Yeah.
two guys are going to connect on a regular basis throughout every game. And I mean, I think we have Aaron Rodgers placed very well at the seventh overall spot. But with that being said, this is your QB3 on average last year. And
Mhm.
if there's anyone who wants to prove two YouTubers wrong who just started their YouTube channel, it's Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not going to be surprised if he comes out as a top four, top five QB next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we both have kind of become more big fan of A-Rod over this last offseason just because I think he's letting us know who he really is as a person. But with all that said, man, that schedule it shakes me a little bit. It makes it hard for me to bank that he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, mostly just because of how crazy his season last year was.
Yeah.
It was an MVP year. We cannot bank on even. I don't care how good you are. We can't bank on the fact that you're going to be that good year over year. He's still going to be dominant. He's still going to be elite. But I like the guys that we went over. We just went over more than him. I think that they've got the chance to now have a season that gives them that MVP type of potential. I don't see A-Rod having an MVP year this year, to be honest. And the thing about the Packers too is they're often going to lean on the run if they can. They're going to go to the run in the red zone if they can. But I don't know. I'm still if I come away in my drafts with Aaron Rodgers, I know that I have a top quarterback week over week, and I can not even have to worry about it. Right? Other than the bye week, I don't have to worry about quarterback. But in your casual leagues and even in your expert leagues, I think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers probably go a little bit earlier than maybe he deserves to go because of the name he carries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so different than Tom Brady because Tom Brady is a deep value. You can get him so late. But Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I don't know. I think he's going to go early in a lot of drafts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, on average, I think he's still sitting kind of teeter-tottering between like QB6 and up to like QB9, right? But I think you're right. I think after Dak Prescott is taken off the board, between, I don't know, man, it's hard. I think you're
Yeah.
right, though. I think a lot of people are going to go out and almost reach for him because of the name. But I think a lot of these guys that, Tom Brady included, and then like Russell Wilson too, I think people are just going to go out and snag because of their names. But I think you're right to be a little wary overall of Aaron Rodgers, but honestly, I'm just scared of Aaron Rodgers. I feel like he's out to get me and out to get
Dude,
everyone.
he might just be like, yo, week 4, I'm not going to come play because they did me
Yeah,
wrong. So, let's not ever put that
sure.
aside, dude. This guy's a wild man.
He is. But last note is last year, he was a top 10 quarterback every week except for week 2, week 6, and week 15,
He's a
which
beast.
is absolutely insane. So
This
we'll be.
division's gotten better, man. This division's
It
gotten better,
has.
though.
It has.
Yeah.
But he does play the Detroit Lions twice a year. So
Dude, they're going
be
to be biting
very.
kneecaps, bro. Watch out for an injury.
Yeah, Dan Campbell. But definitely be wary if you are a fantasy player this coming year when Aaron Rodgers is playing
Yeah.
against the Lions and he is up against you. So uh, let's move right along. So this is where things start to get a little interesting, right? So I'm actually going to hand it to you because your 8th ranked quarterback is my QB10, and then interestingly enough, your QB10 is my QB8. So I actually want to hear you break down your guy, your QB8, Ryan Tannehill, because I love Ryan Tannehill. I like him a
Mhm.
lot. And somehow he wound up as my QB10. So I want to see, what your thoughts are
Dude,
overall on
this
our guy
this
here.
this top 12 is hard, man.
It
So
is.
it being top 10, that's so damn good. So
Yeah.
I think my biggest kind of leaning on Ryan Tannehill here was just that this is a guy who over the past couple of years is the most underrated quarterback in all of football. I mean,
Sure.
you love him. You had him last year, I think, right?
Yep.
And I mean, this is a guy who was balling out with like no name type of guys. I mean, he made Corey Davis like a beast and go get paper with the New York Jets. I mean, and it was also a run heavy offense with the Titans who handed the ball off every play to Derrick Henry. I don't see this offense being exactly the same next year. I see it now, maybe opening up, becoming a little bit more pass happy. And because of Julio Jones being there too, now you got Julio and AJ Brown, two
Yeah.
absolute badasses at the position. They lost Jonnu Smith. Obviously, that hurts. But Anthony Firkser's a really good tight end, too. He's in my top 24 rankings this year. I think he's another sleeper. But you still have Derrick Henry to soften up these defenses. It's still going to open up a ton of efficiency. And the other thing, too, is Ryan Tannehill presents a very comfortable rushing floor as well.
Yep.
This is a guy who was a wide receiver in college. We all know the story, converted to quarterback. But he does a ton of, fake handoffs in the red zone, bootlegs it out, running for a touchdown in the red zone. And he also can run out for like 20, 30-yard scampers. I mean, this guy is so talented, so efficient. He does not turn the ball over a whole lot. And I think the Titans are going to become more pass happy because ultimately that's what's kind of held them back. I feel like over the past couple of years is their inability to become flexible and adapt to defenses when they start stacking the box.
Sure. Yeah, I think I think you summed it up great, and I love the point that Ryan Tannehill can run the football. I mean, 7 rushing touchdowns last year. I mean, only 266 rushing yards, but go back and look at some of those individual runs. I mean, he does
Nice.
provide a very good floor in terms of rushing, but I think he also made a great point that, in my opinion, to bounce off of you, I think this is the safest quarterback you can select this
Mhm.
year. Like, if you don't want to select a QB early, but you still want someone of good value who's kind of being slept on, this is probably the safest selection I can think of. I mean, a relatively difficult strength of schedule, looking at 26 overall in terms of difficulty, but I don't know, man. I don't know that I really care because he doesn't have to be great every week. He just has to be good, right? And I think once again, in terms of being slept on, this is your QB 7 last year, and I don't know how I let him slide down to QB 10 on my rankings. I'm kind of upset with myself because I do love Ryan Tannehill so much, and I think he's going to have a fantastic year overall. And I think that you're absolutely correct that the departure of Corey Davis and Johnny Smith does hurt him in terms of having those guys that kind of were go-to guys for him at their respective positions. But you get Julio fucking Jones on this
Yeah.
team. And
Yeah.
nonetheless, my guy Anthony Ferkser is awesome. I talked about him in one of the mock drafts I filmed today, and I think he's a potential to be a very good sleeper tight end. So I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be a-okay. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. And yeah, overall consensus for me is that he is probably the safest quarterback you can go out and target.
I
And
think he could be a fantasy league winner too
sure, absolutely.
because of that value.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, once again, I'm very angry at myself for how I put those rankings together. Because shout out Ryan Tannehill, I do love you, man. If you ever hear this, so let's move on to my eighth ranked quarterback, and that of Russie Wilson, my
Mhm.
guy. I love Russell Wilson, man. Like
I
one of
know.
my favorite players in the league, one of my favorite players in general, someone who I think has slept on to some degree in terms of his overall talent. But a couple things to observe for our guy Russ, right? So QB 6 on average last year, but the big kind of asterisk around that is obviously he took absolutely off at the beginning of the year. QB 1 week 1, then QB 4, QB 2, QB 14, then 7, 5, 2, 10, and then he kind of saw like after that 10th overall finish in week 9, kind of teeter tottering. QB 19, QB 12, QB 19, QB 21, QB 8. So he just kind of fell off, right? And then he moved into QB 28, QB 14, QB 17 to finish out the year. So we saw a big drop off, right? I mean, it isn't really that bad when you look at it, but in comparison to what he was doing in the first half of the year, it's bad because
Yeah.
he was on pace to be QB 1 last year
And you
overall
start
from
to rely on that too.
sure. And the other thing with Russell Wilson, there's two other things, right? And they're kind of intertwined. I mean, the most difficult strength of schedule from the position on average. And when you look at what that entails, it entails playing the LA Rams twice and the San Francisco 49ers twice this year, which are they're both going to have
And an improved
phenomenal.
Arizona Cardinals defense.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Don't sleep on the Cardinals either, right? But certainly two of the best defenses
Hmm.
in the league, right? And uh, he has historically shown that he does not play very well against the Niners and the Rams. Now, he did have a second overall finish against the Niners last year, but that's kind of the gamble, right? Is like there's really no in between for Russell Wilson. Like he's either
Yeah.
balling out or he's getting you 6 points.
He's like
It's
a
like,
wide receiver. He's like a wide
yeah,
receiver. Yeah.
yeah.
That's scary to have a quarterback.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like even in some of those games like he's winning the football game. He's doing what he needs to do, but it's hurting from a fantasy perspective. So
Yeah.
uh but nonetheless, I mean I think when you look at the stats, right? He certainly deserves to be a top 10 quarterback. I mean,
Hmm.
in the last 2 years over 30 touchdowns and over 4,000 passing yards. as well as over 300 rushing yards in each season and at least at least 2 rushing touchdowns. I was looking at fumbles. He had at least 7 fumbles in the last 2 years as well, in case you guys are wondering.
That's
But
actually pretty terrible.
yeah, yeah.
That's pretty
I
terrible.
mean, when you look at last year alone, over 4,200 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, which is actually pretty bad by his standards, right? But still 500 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So when you look at those numbers, those are pretty similar to guys that we talked about early on in this video, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know, man. I just don't want to sleep on Russell Wilson. I mean, I mentioned it when I was talking about Aaron Rodgers that even with this extremely difficult strength of schedule, this is just a guy who I believe can go out there and perform week in and week out. But you have to take into consideration, some of the things that I just went over. And I don't know. I'm really torn because I think you can get Russell Wilson at a pretty good discount, but I think you need to be relatively leery. And I think the other last thing that I'll add on my huge tangent about Russell Wilson is he is getting up there, right? And we did talk
Hmm.
about guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and not sleeping on them. And you probably shouldn't sleep on Russell Wilson either. But he is getting up there in his career, and you have to expect to see some type of regression, which
And he relies on his mobility.
sure, and I mean, we saw that natural regression with guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers at this point in their career, and then they kind of bounce back at the latter, right? And I won't be surprised if Russell Wilson has some regression, or if he just comes out and has an MVP type year. So I'm really torn because I really, really like Russell Wilson, but overall, I'm just torn, and that's really all I got. So
He's like a messy romantic relationship, man. There's
sure,
strings attached. It's messy. It's complicated. I mean, that's what you get when you draft,
yeah,
Russell Wilson. You know you're going to be in a complicated relationship. And
sure,
honestly, this year I can just tell you he's off my draft board. I'm not
yeah,
taking him. He's in my top 12 rankings because I know he's going to be there. But honestly, I'd rather wait for guys that are at 11, 12, 13, 14 and take
yeah.
them because I just don't want a part of that inconsistency.
I completely understand it, and
Yeah.
I can't knock that opinion whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I will say on another note that this is probably another guy who's going to get swept up pretty early
Hmm.
in your draft because of his name, right? And I don't necessarily dislike that fact, right? But um, I don't know, man. Just don't expect him to be there, and I don't know what your expectation overall for Russell Wilson should be. So, nonetheless, let's move right along to our ninth ranked player, which we have an agreement on,
Oh, yeah, we
and
do.
that of Justin Herbert,
Oh
man.
man, his
So,
flow was looking good the other day, dude. I saw
I
that shit in preseason,
I knew
yo.
you were going to bring that up. So, nonetheless, right, we've got him ranked ninth overall. This is your QB9 on average last year. Uh, and I mean, he didn't even play week one, right? So he had to, have his hitman stab Tyrod Taylor
Yeah,
in the chest to.
they had to take care of him first.
But man, what a good rookie season! I mean, outside of week 13 and that absolute blowout against the Patriots where he was QB 30,
Yeah,
uh,
that was pretty bad.
yeah, pretty bad. Like 4 points that week, right? Luckily, I didn't start him that week, but nonetheless, yeah, this is a guy I got off the waiver wire last year because in previous years, like I had the opportunity to go in and get Deshaun Watson, and I just remember that being a big moment in my fantasy career, so to speak. Uh, not adding Deshaun Watson and then sitting there and watching. I don't remember who he was playing against, but it was like the week that he just exploded on the scene. And I just watched him put up like 45 fantasy points and just sat there very sad. Uh, and I remember having that feeling about Justin Herbert after that game against Tampa Bay, where he came out and really started to prove himself, although he had played well against Kansas City and Carolina in weeks 2 and week 3. He played very well neck and neck with Tom Brady in week 4 last year. And then the following week came out and played neck and neck with Drew Brees and still put up 35 fantasy points on average. And then after that, he just went off, man. And he had a very easy schedule, for the next coming weeks. Until he saw Miami and still played very well in that week. So he did kind of fall off towards the end of the year last year. If you had him in your fantasy championship last year, he was QB3. So, but he had some, including that New England blowout. He did kind of uh, have some natural, regression. But he was a fucking rookie last year, and I mean. I don't know, man. I don't have enough good things to say about Justin Herbert. I think we have him ranked well. and I can feel your energy over there just exploding. So I'll hand it over.
Boiling,
Yeah, hand it
boiling.
over to you,
Whether
man.
it's football related, I don't know. But no, I mean, I think the thing with Justin Herbert is the biggest benefit to his outlook next year is I think he's got more comfort, more trust with this team. And I've been outspoken about this. Anthony Lynn was so bad for him last year. I
Yeah,
mean, it capped his touchdowns incredibly because Anthony Lynn, like, just did not know what he was doing in the red zone. If they got near 20 yards, he just shut down and like didn't know what to do, which then like screwed up Justin Herbert's stats. So it's like
yeah,
they now have a great offensive mind put into place there, and they enforce the O line. So now Justin Herbert doesn't have to create all these crazy ass plays, which he did last year. And now he can just sit back there in the pocket and use his arm, which is one of the best in the league already, hands down. I mean, this guy is dynamite. Now, the receiving core, we touched on it, when we went over the AFC West video. It's a little weak once you get past Keenan Allen. But
sure.
Justin Herbert was able to show something that made him in that elite company. He does what Aaron Rodgers does, which is rise people to a
Yeah,
different level.
yeah,
And that's what's so scary about Justin Herbert is that he showed that so early. I can't think about any quarterback before that has done that early in his career in his rookie year. And I think a lot of my love for Justin Herbert goes beyond fantasy because fantasy football wise, I don't know if we're going to see him break past top nine. He does have great rushing upside because he can run the ball, but it's not going to make him like an elite company running the ball wise. You know what I mean? But I do
sure.
see his passing touchdowns going up too, but how much do they go up? You know what I mean? Because this
Yeah,
offense, it's skill position wise, nobody's going to be a game breaker outside of Keenan Allen.
yeah,
I think Austin Eckler does help his value too, though, because if things do get shitty or crazy, just dump it off to Austin Eckler and he could break it all the way for a touchdown.
sure.
So I think like 9 is a great spot for him. I do think he's in that top 10 when all things are said and done. And I'm willing to take a shot on him as opposed to a guy like Russell Wilson or a
Sure.
guy like Jalen Hurts, that we'll talk about later, because it's like, I think Justin Herbert is just a clear cut one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now.
Sure. Uh, and I mean, go check out, our podcast within that division because we talked a lot about Justin
Mhm.
Herbert that night. But I'll leave you guys because I think you did a great job summing that up and really have all the same viewpoints I do. But last note, most touchdowns by a rookie in NFL history, or passing touchdowns by a rookie in NFL history, and only second behind that of your guy, Andrew Luck, for passing yards. And he missed week 1. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And I also just wanted to mention Andrew Luck. So let's move right along to a guy you just mentioned that we would talk about later, and now is later, and our
Mhm.
11th ranked quarterback, which we both agree on, and that of Jalen Hurts. So fly, Eagles, fly, baby. Let's
Yeah.
get right into it. You know, I had a strong suspicion. This is another reason I'm glad we are recording these things now and putting them on the internet because when the Eagles went out and drafted that of Jalen Hurts, even though Carson Wentz was there, I had a very strong suspicion that this was going to be the guy. And we saw a very awkward transition at the
Mhm.
quarterback position. Granted that Carson Wentz played very poorly last year, but uh, and Jalen Hurts, or excuse me, or, yeah, Jalen Hurts. I was thinking Jalen Waddle, and then I was thinking that I said
He's a
Jalen
good guy
Waddle,
too.
but I said Jalen Hurts, which is correct. Nonetheless, in Jalen Hurts' second start, right? QB1 against Arizona from a fantasy perspective last year. That's nuts, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely nuts. And what you get in Jalen Hurts is I think you're getting a discount on a guy who could be in the conversation of a must draft top 5 quarterback
Oh
next year
yeah.
in that conversation right there with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. I think
Yeah.
he has a very similar skill set, and I think we're going to see him just be unleashed this year. Now, the gamble with going out and because you're going to have to pay a pretty heavy price to get Jalen Hurts on your squad. I mean, he is kind of lingering around QB 9, 10, 11, depending on the rankings and ADP and stuff wherever you're drafting through, but it's still a pretty good price to pay for a quarterback, right? But the kind of the gamble is what if it doesn't work out? And I think the last note I'll put out there is a lot of people said that about Kyler Murray last year, and
Yeah.
it's certainly worked out. So I'll let
Yeah.
you fill in the rest here.
Yeah, I was like, I almost jumped in there because when
Yeah,
you said you can get a discounted top 4 player, I think that's like the perfect thing to say there. He's just like, in a fantasy perspective, he's a discounted Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're getting here, because he does similar things. He's not as elite at running. He might be an average to the same type of passer, honestly. But I do think the fact is that he's going to be just as important to this offense as Lamar Jackson is. They do not have a good running back committee, in my opinion, in Philadelphia. Miles Sanders, I hate him. So maybe I'm a little biased there. But let me just say this. I mean, you're taking a risk with a guy like Jalen Hurts, right? You at the end of the day, you could just be stuck with the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, who are not projected to have a great year next year. But the thing is you're taking a risk on a guy that can be a top 5 quarterback. And I think if you're doing and you're looking at draft strategies, right? I think a great thing to do is you take Jalen Hurts, and then maybe you look at our top, 13 to 24 rankings, and you come back and you take another guy there that maybe would even slip out of the draft board, and you can have that consistency as well. But another thing too with getting Hurts is, they get to play defenses that are not that great. Like, he gets to play against Dallas twice a year. He gets to play against the Giants, who we both think are going to be a really shitty team next year. So, there are things in his favor, but I really just love his rushing upside. And I love the fact that he is willing to work his ass off every single day. And I think he's going to be vastly improved than he was last year. He was in the worst situation of all time last year, and he made the most out of it. I'm looking for a better Jalen Hurts this year.
I think you hit it right on the dot too. I think a perfect draft strategy is, if you go out and get Jalen Hurts, is then going out and looking at some of those rookie quarterbacks, like a Trevor Lawrence, like a Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and adding them and being able to hold on to them. But I'm telling you, man, this seems like the exact type of quarterback that you go out and target. I already have planned. I'm planning on you selecting Jalen Hurts, and that's why, like, for me, I'm literally not even thinking about Jalen Hurts because I think this is your guy, and you're too scared to tell me. But nonetheless, last note is, I just don't think you can sleep on this guy. There's like some speculation out there still that the Eagles are going to go out and still trade for Deshaun Watson, which, like, I'm not saying isn't going to happen, but at this point in time, don't make that part of like a reason that you don't want to draft Jalen Hurts. I think he's absolutely worth the draft pick.
One thing we have to bring up: Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, a beautiful topic to bring up. If you're asking me, I mean, I love Gardner Minshew. I was angry when the Jags took Trevor Lawrence because I love my guy Minshew Mania, the exact type of quarterback that I root for, right? But I'm not going to be surprised if it's more of just a depth move, because I think it's proven that Gardner Minshew can play, and I think the overall plan is to utilize Jalen Hurts to the best of his ability, and he's going to be running the football a lot, which in turn can lead to some potential injuries. So that's where I'm looking at that. But shout out to our guy Gardner Minshew.
We had to bring him up, man. He hadn't taken a shit in like 2 months, man. He's committed to being number one.
Beautiful man.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our final quarterback of the night. As your dad has named him, Matthew Matthew Stafford. Let's get rolling. Matthew Stafford is a really interesting quarterback to look at from a fantasy perspective this year. I mean, your QB 15 last year, but you've seen him all offseason and preseason kind of like moving up and down in ADP, like from the 15 mark to the 12 mark to the 16 mark to the 11 mark, just kind of all over the place. And at the end of the day, for me, because I love Matthew Stafford as a player, right? But it really just comes down to how much conviction you have in the Rams offense and the idea
Sean McVay.
Of Matthew Stafford just taking off this year. But I don't think he really has to take off per se, right? I think if he can come out and just be Matthew Stafford, that the numbers are going to reflect themselves. And when you kind of look at kind of the guys teetering on that number 12 mark, like Kirk Cousins,
Matt Ryan.
Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger, maybe. I mean, some of these other guys that you kind of see there, right? I think Matt Stafford has the best opportunity to be better than all of those next coming guys, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of Sean McVay, and I think he's going to utilize Matthew Stafford very well. And I think the interesting thing here is maybe we don't really know what Sean McVay can do as a head coach. Maybe Jared Goff has been holding him back a little bit, and maybe we're all sleeping on Matt Stafford a bit, and maybe they can come out and just absolutely light up the league. And so, I mean, I think maybe there's a little bit of a gamble there, but if you have conviction in Sean McVay as a coach and in this Rams offense, then you should not be sleeping on Matt Stafford whatsoever.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up Jared Goff. Can we talk about like a crazier life change, like for these two guys than anybody?
Right.
One guy goes from Detroit to LA, and one guy goes from LA to Detroit. It's just kind of funny, and I mean, I think they did Jared Goff terribly, but you make a great point here. Matt Stafford is leaps and bounds beyond Jared Goff, and if Matt Stafford can just be Detroit Matt Stafford in this LA Rams Sean McVay system, the ceiling is the sky. I mean, it could be crazy. And let's also couple that with the fact that you can get him at the end of your draft. I mean, the value potential at a Matt Stafford is insane, dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's why when you're looking at guys like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or maybe these other guys that are really, really good, it's like, dude, Matt Stafford is probably going to have pretty similar numbers and you can get him so much later. I know it's not as sexy of a name, maybe, but dude, this Rams offense is going to be fucking solid next year. And Cam Akers going down, Henderson now going down, and it just getting kind of muddy back there in that running back field. Dude, like, if anything, that just makes me think that Sean McVay is like hype. He's just in there. He's like, great, now we can throw every fucking play. Like, I think Sean McVay is super psyched about this. And so is Matt Stafford, because Matt Stafford throws it every single play anyways, his entire career. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm pumped. I think Matt Stafford is a damn steal, and I've highlighted him as one of my players to break out at quarterback as well. I think this is a guy, and we have him at 12, but he's got a great potential to jump up. Very little to no rushing upside, though, and that's what hurts him. That's the thing that hurts him.
It's absolutely true. But keep in mind that this could also be the first year we see him throw for over 5,000 passing yards. I don't think that's a stretch to say.
Yeah.
And I think in line with that, we're going to see possibly his best year in terms of passing touchdowns as well.
Yeah.
You know, I have to do it. 7th easiest overall schedule at the quarterback position. That's pretty scary, man. And I think that speaks a lot of volumes to guys like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp not being drafted soon enough and having clear-cut wide receiver number 1 value. Both of those guys do. Go check out our wide receiver ranking videos. Well, at least our second part where we talked about both those guys. But nonetheless, man, don't sleep on our guy, Matty's staph infection. He's going to come out and light the league up. I think we both think that. And like I said, he really doesn't even have to do anything astronomical.
Yeah.
So we'll cap it off with that beautiful discussion on Matt Stafford. That was a blast as always, man. Like always, if you guys did enjoy this video or find it helpful anyway, go ahead and smash the like button. And we are on the road to 100 subscribers. Go ahead and make Steven's dream a reality. Look at him. I know that you want to.
I'll do a live video of me crying.
I know you guys want to see that on camera. And a guy who did not make our top 12 is that of Baker Mayfield, but I'm telling you, our 100 subscriber is getting this Baker Mayfield Funko Pop. I am shipping it to you. So go ahead and subscribe. We're going to be pumping out a ton more of this fantasy content all year long. So as always, go and drop some comments down below on what you guys thought of this top 12. It's pretty consensus amongst a lot of rankings. At least these top 12 guys are there, but nonetheless, we want to give you guys our thoughts and opinions. Shout out to the Catch fam and all of our already subscribers that we have, and I will cap it off or throw it over to you, Steven, to cap off any thoughts that you have.
Yeah, man, lots of great things you can do with the quarterbacks in your prospective drafts. I would just say, if you're one of those guys like John has been historically that kind of values getting a quarterback later in your drafts, 2 names that I think you should definitely be looking at if you're not already: Ryan Tannehill and Matt Stafford. These guys you can get so late and can be absolute gems for you. Deep sleepers too, and provide very solid floors. I think you would agree with that too. But man, I mean, it's a hell of a ride. We're doing quarterback rankings 13 to 24 as well. That's going to be awesome. And we're going to also talk about some great rookies for the season, which we both love. Let me just say right now, Trey Lance is going to be on that fucking video, baby.
As always, we thank you guys so much for watching and listening. You already know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the sub button, drop some comments down below. And remember, as always, you saw it here on The Catch.